fiction. It's just the media telling us lies. Decide the fiction from the truth. Society's slow and tragic demise. Open your eyes, you're losing control. Open your eyes, put down the phone. Everyone's got their fucking opinion.
What's happening, gang? It's the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live, episode number 368. Is that right? 368. March 30th. March 30th, 2025. 5-year anniversary right around the corner. I think the first show was April something. 5 years. 5 years. What's up, Stefan? All right. What's happening up in Troy? I saw Jeff Manin last night. We played with them. Thanks, Ray. Ray Hogan was there. We played last night. We played the Enormo Dome. We played the it wasn't a VFW hall. What was it? It was a American Legion Hall. We played the Molly Pitcher American Legion Hall last night. It was great. Great show. What's up, Spikey? What do you say? I hope you don't blow away in the storm. Yes, Count Ralphus. The photographer shows are always great. And we're going to go deep here. Big show and tell today with an old friend of ours. It's going to be very, very cool. Englishtown. Yeah. It was the Molly Pitcher American Legion Hall in Englishtown, New Jersey. It was cool. It was a cool show. It was like a, no stage, for us, by us. It was fun. It was a fun night, So John Bello is back. Where you been, John? I love when they come back, There's a few that have wandered off and have never come back, but glad you're back, John Bello. Yes, FUBU, for us, by us. Yeah, there was a baseball field next to it. It was cool. Cindy was there. Yep. Sick of it. Incendiary was there. And it was cool. Fun show. Sworn Enemy was great. And Silence Equals Death was probably the best I've ever seen him. Larry, I've talked to Upstate Rick. He doesn't want to come back. He feels like, I don't know, it sucks, man. He came back for a minute when we did Roger Moret, but he just doesn't feel like he's a part of this anymore. And I told him that's what of course you're still a part of it. It sucks, man. If anybody knows Upstate Rick, reach out to him. He was a big part of the show in the beginning. Hey, Sean Meyer. How are you, buddy? Can't wait for the Bowery show on the 13th. That would be this show, right? Conservative military image. I can't wait for this one, too. Conservative military image. Incendiary Device, American Eagle, Murderer's Row, and Faded Line. If you are in the New York area 2 days before that, at the new and improved Pugs in Gatton Island, it's Enrage record release show, Cropsy, Incendiary Device, Tear Gas. So that's going to be pretty cool. You can't wait. Channel 3. When is Channel 3? Channel 3 is a ways off. Channel 3 is, oops. Channel 3 Sunday, June 22nd. Channel 3 Malavista, Chemical X, Chumhuffer, Beast from the East at the Bowery Electric. So that said, speaking, great show last night, great sound. Shout out to the sound man. It was a good show. Did we talk last night, Gertie McCracken? Did we interact? A lot of people are like, I was there last night. I'm like, people don't use their real names in the chat room. What's up, John? Hey, how do I know it's you?
It's me. I swear it's me.
Yeah, a little bit.
What's up?
If I would have known it was you, Gertie, we would have spoke more. I don't know, Oh, you got a button. Why didn't you introduce yourself to me? What's wrong with you people?
They're afraid of you. You scare people.
No, I don't. No, I don't. I'm the biggest Murderers Row fan. How far is Texas to New York? Well, James G. Philosopher, let me tell you something. Texas is a big state. It depends where in Texas you are. But Texas is a mighty big state there, cowboy. So, you could spend 3 days driving across Texas. So, a funny thing. Oh, Drew, hi, I'm Kevin. That's easy. Yeah.
Hello, Kevin.
Hello, Kevin. How do we know it's you? Photo of the day. You know what? We could call this photo a day because this is gonna
This is kind of a funny coincidence.
Yeah, funny coincidence here. Photo of the day. Let's just go with right answers here. Who knows who this is? All right. Photo of the day. Who is this? What do you make of this? Who is this? Let's see. I think here comes here. Yeah. Let's see what we got there. People are stumped. What's up, Sean Brennan?
Hey, Sean.
Is it Billy Milano? All right. Proper answers. Let me do a couple of improper answers. Gene Simmons.
He just canceled his whole solo tour for lack of tickets.
Yeah, well. Is it Bruce Springsteen? Close, kind of.
Close.
Right?
Very
all right.
close.
Here's Yo, Joe Frank, saw you last night, bro. Thanks for coming out. Bruce. It actually is not Bruce Springsteen, but it is somewhat close. Right? It is. Yeah. Here you go. It is somewhat close. There you go. Here's another one. All right. It is not Southside Johnny. It is not Harrison Ford. It is not Dave Draymond.
Dave Draymond, that's from the guy from The Disturbed.
Okay. It is Robert Granger got it. It's Apu.
That's right. That's
He's
right.
So here you go. So this is who this is, right? So Steven shows me this photo. We were going to do photo day, and I'm like, I don't know. It is Hank. How do you pronounce it?
Azaria. Hank Azaria.
Azaria. That's right. It's Hank Azaria. That's
Correct.
right. It is Hank Azaria doing Bruce.
Right. The Easy Street Band, he calls it.
Right. And is that right? Is he Chief Wiggum too?
Yeah.
Right. So
that's right.
So I go, I don't know. This, who cares? And then Steven mentions that the guy, in fact, does the voices of The Simpsons. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. And we looked up the voices that he's done, right? And who is it that he's done?
He did a whole bunch of them.
He did Apu.
Apu, the comic book guy.
He did the comic book guy.
The Duff guy.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, he's, Mo Sislak, of course.
Oh, that was his big one, Mo.
Yeah.
He did Mo. That's right. Mo was the big one. And so we were bugging out. We were just bugging out on all this and talking about how much I'm reading about how much he got paid doing The Simpsons. And I'm just in the beginning, he was paid $30,000 an episode to do voiceovers. And then towards in 2008, he was getting $400,000 per episode. Imagine that, $400,000. So he's doing a Springsteen thing, right?
Yep.
And then, interestingly enough, our guest came on during the pre-show, and we were just talking about this guy, and our guest today, who's everybody's going to meet in a minute, says, just out of the blue, we're talking about voiceovers for the Simpsons. He goes, hey, I went to summer camp with Hank Azaria. And there on the left, on the upper left is Hank, sitting right next to today's guest, David Plastik. They went to camp Tawanda together. Like, that is crazy.
That's so funny.
Isn't that wild? Just, I mean, and I was like, there's not enough there to talk about,
Yeah.
whatever. And here is another classic circa 1976 shot of Camp
Tawanda.
Tawanga. Tatonga.
1976, the bicentennial.
Tatonga. Tatonga.
And where did he say it was? Third row on the left, I think he said, right?
Yeah, he's on the left and Hank's on the right. Yeah.
So is that
a lot of
Jufros? Yeah.
A lot of Jufros going down in that shot.
Oh, that's so funny. Do you remember the Bicentennial Minute used to be on TV?
No.
They used to have it like between TV shows. 200 years ago today.
Right.
Yeah,
Summer camp. Summer camp. It's a summer camp roll call. Post it. If anybody went to summer camp, post the name of it in the chat room. Now, I went to, amongst other things, I went to Camp Delaware in Winstead, Connecticut for a couple summers. Here's a shot of me, I guess, age 16 with some of my camp friends. Here you go. How's that? Yep.
Of course, representing the dead.
There I am at 16 years old in summer camp. That's what my focus was on at 16 years old in summer camp. Girls and smoking pot,
and girls that smoke pot.
It was mostly smoking pot, really. Girls were just sort of like a nuisance and an inconvenience. Camp Mason in the house. Blairstown, New Jersey, where Friday the 13th was. All right.
Oh, right.
I went to the CYO day camp in Whitestone, Queens.
That's it. We brought all the we brought all the campers out.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. I looked like Matthew McConaughey in Dazed and Confused. I was 16 years old.
All right.
I fucking hated summer camp, man. I just wanted to be back in the city, hanging out on the street corner with my friends. Like getting banished to summer camp was like fucking sucked.
Banished.
I hated it, man. I hated it.
Oh,
man.
That's funny.
There's another one. Hold on. There's another great one if I can find it. But yeah, it was tough, man. I struggled at summer camp, man. It's a fucking bummer.
Arts and crafts and camping and all that.
I didn't give a good goddamn about any of that shit. I wanted to smoke pot and listen to freaking music and be a juvenile delinquent. Like being in summer camp was like a bummer, man. Fuck.
That's it. We should do the Hardcore Chronicles camp now.
It's the New York Hardcore Chronicles camp. It's the New York Hardcore Chronicles camp. Come, spend the day with Vinny Stigma, arts and crafts.
That's right.
Learn how to roll a spliff with Jimmy G. And
we'll camp out in Tompkins Square Park.
Yeah, right. We will camp out amongst the needles and refuse in Tompkins Square Park. Amongst other things. Anyway, that said, all right, cool.
This is going to be a good one. I got to say, we already had like our own mini show, like in the backstage.
Yeah, so. I know, right? You and him could have done the show. I don't need to be here.
I knew as soon as we had met, this is going to be a good one. So
yeah,
definitely looking forward to it. Let's do it.
I'll see you in a bit. This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live. We are sponsored by the Texas Silver Rush, DTFM Vinyl Distro, Generation Records, 126 Hardcore Clothing, Women of the Pit, and Mad Vintage. Mad Vintage buys, sells, collects band shirts, primarily hardcore. The DIY operation was started and is operated by a hardcore kid who just loves collecting and eventually got into the realm of vintage band shirts. They are always looking to buy out collections to either keep, sell, or trade. New shirts added daily at www.madvintage.com and posted on Instagram. dig deep into that closet of crap and reach out to them. Help me help you, Mad Vintage. Just seriously about Mad Vintage, you got a bunch of old hardcore shirts that you don't wear and you want to make a few bucks, reach out to them. I sold them all my shit because you know me, I don't want none of this stuff. Stuff stresses me out. Anything that's everything's for sale. Everything in my life. I sold a couple of my gold records. Who needs this shit? Maybe you do. I don't. That said, let's bring our guest on. Mo the bartender, right? All right, clear the deck. Here we go. Today's guest is a photographer hailing from the Empire State of New York. He's known for his images documenting the golden age of hard rock in the 1980s. Here today to give us some perspective on his incredible archive vintage music images, please welcome, coming at us from Las Vegas, Nevada, the city of sin, our old friend, Mr. David Plastik. Hey, man.
Hello, Drew. How are you?
I'm good, buddy. How are you?
Just Sunday afternoon.
I like how you're the first guest to use the StreamYard background image, and you even put some of your own pictures back there. That's impressive.
Yeah, well, that's like I said, that's my business card. So that's it's just it's a graphic that someone made, just like the good graphics that you guys make.
Yep.
And I just uploaded it because I don't want to show my house.
Yeah, right.
My house is a mess. I don't have this kind of, one day I'll have a setup like this, but I don't have it now. So
sure. How's things in Vegas? How's the weather?
Oh, it's gorgeous. It's a little windy today. It's been, but it's gorgeous. 80 something degrees. It's going to be a real hot summer. I could tell already.
Yeah. And I'll be out there right in the middle of it to suffer. I think the punk rock bowling thing, the outdoor day part is like at the Las Vegas Expo space and
it's at the downtown event center, which is right off Fremont Street, which is across from the D Hotel. It's like this parking lot thing, and it's a madhouse. It's not going to be that. I mean, if you came here in August, you would die.
Yeah,
but May's going to be
okay, just
as bad.
Good to know. So, all right, let's chop it up a little bit. Let's bounce the ball back and forth, and let's get into it.
Sure.
How did you come up? Did you grow up in a musical household? How did photography and music come into your life?
Not at all. I wasn't in a musical household. My parents really weren't into music. I grew up when I got into, but I was always into I'd always listen to the radio, listen to Casey Kasem, Top 40. I was a record collector early on. I would, buy 45s and this. And when we moved to Manhattan, I got introduced to concerts. I lived 1 mile from Madison Square Garden. You can't get a better venue than Madison Square Garden, more historical venue than Madison Square Garden. I started going to concerts. I was 14, started growing my hair long, everything like that. My parents, my father, my mom always supported me. My father was a kind of a pain, didn't like me going to concerts, didn't like this. But he really, he just had to let me be. He bought me a camera to steer me away from concerts. Oh, here, you want a hobby? Here, become a photographer. I showed him. I took it to a concert.
There you go.
And that's all I took pictures of. So I just, you could, back in the 80s, you could just bring your camera into concerts. Even though it's set on the tickets, no cameras, no tape. They didn't give a shit. They didn't have metal detectors. They didn't want to search
especially
you.
In New York, right?
Yeah, no, they didn't want to search you. And once you got it in, 95% of the time, once you were in there, you were free. It was only a few times that I got chased by, roadies or something like that, or management. But otherwise, it was free, and you shoot the whole show. So it was great. I never wanted to give that up. I didn't want to become the press photographer that only got 3 songs.
Let me interject that you and I first crossed paths because we both went to McBurney High School
Yes.
on 63rd Street here in the city. I only lasted a year before they quote unquote didn't invite me back. And then
I lasted 2.5 years. I lasted ninth through mid 11th grade, and I lived right next door to that. I used to
but
my
it took
building
me a
was
minute.
Yeah.
It took me a minute to figure out a couple years ago, where do I know this guy from? And it was we were somewhat friends in 10th grade in when I was in 10th grade in McBurney, which was pretty much like what, 78 or 79.
Yeah, 10th grade would be 79, yes.
Yeah.
80 maybe.
So we both went to McBurney then, and like you said, you lived across the street. And,
right on the street. I'm connected. We're the building.
You were in that building right next to it?
Yeah, the one that's connected to it. Yes.
Whoa, no shit.
Yeah, I took the elevator down. I was in school. It was perfect. It was the easiest thing. I'd go home for lunch, go upstairs for lunch.
Wow.
The ASCAP building, which is One Lincoln Plaza.
That's right. And I want to shout out Astoria Lou, who works in the building now, in the McBurney building. He works in there now. So I told him that. He's like, wow, so. But isn't that wild, Rich Solar? Like, we went to 10th grade together. And so that said, and listen, I remember you and I, we were part of that thing there. It was an interesting time, the late 70s, to be a lover of music, because things were so sort of what's the word? They were just so partitioned. Like, what are you into? Like, are you into rock? Are you into disco? Remember McBurney? There was it was a scary place in a lot of levels.
A lot of deadheads in McBurney. A lot of stoners would go to Central Park, get high, and that's where I started getting high too. Yep. And we go there. Our field where we played was Central Park.
That's right.
That's the weirdest thing. It's like, most schools have a baseball field, a football field. Ours was Central Park. We'd have to go out there, walk to Central Park, which was half a block away. Yeah. It was fantastic, and that was our, that was our backyard. That was our thing. And the summer concerts were right in the park there. Actually, by then they moved to the pier, I believe. In 80, they were still there. 81, they moved to the pier.
Yeah.
But that was my first time I ever photographed a concert was in Central Park at the Woman Ring, the Dr. Pepper Music Festival. I photographed the Jefferson Starship.
Oh, wow.
With Mickey Thomas on vocals.
What was that, 78?
No, that was 1980.
80.
Right. And
when they had the hit with Jane.
Yes,
Jane
exactly. Jane, and And then the very next day was Ian Hunter and Mick Ronson together. And I photographed that and so on. And I photographed a handful of concerts. And then we started going to the Garden. I was already going to the Garden. I was already going to concerts, but now I was going with my camera. And I just learned how to do it.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, that's fine.
I'm going to throw a couple out there. I'm not sure if, like chronologically where they fit in. I know they're early on. In the game, but I want to show a couple photos and then sort of backtrack and ask you what your equipment was. But let's start with this. Give us the background kind of on this here.
Okay. That's Randy Rhoads. That's Capitol Theater, Passaic, New Jersey, 1981. That was the first time I saw Randy Rhoads. When Ozzy came out, no one knew who Randy Rhoads was. No one knew what he looked like. When I first saw him and those wild guitars that he has, I was like, wow, this guy's great. I was focused on him. I was a very hard concert to sneak my camera into. The Capitol Theater, I would take the bus out there, and I was still 17, and I tried to stick my camera, and they stopped me at the door. They said, "No, you can't bring it in." And I had brought it. I've already been to concerts there, and I brought it. And it's like, why can't I? And then I kept hiding it, and they kept sending me out. So I found a friend that was an older person. Oh, he was an older man, and he had this long raincoat kind of thing on, and the lining was a cutout, so you could just stick them in there. He stuck my camera in, and once I was inside, no one stopped me, and they didn't care anymore. So he stuck the camera in for me after 5 attempts, and I got these great pictures of Randy Rhoads.
And what just backchecking, what was the first camera that your dad bought you?
It was a Konica camera, and a 80 to 200 lens. So I had one lens, one camera, one body, and that's what I would take into concerts. And that's the one I used in that time. It was a good camera. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't a Nikon or what people would use then, or Canons, but mostly Nikons professionals would use.
Did you break the camera into pieces to get it in?
Yeah, you take the lens off, and you stick the body down your pants or in your sock, or But
Sure.
most of the time, I didn't have to sneak it in. Most of them didn't care. If you tried, it wouldn't. But just in that Ozzy show with Randy, they tried to stop me. But luckily I was persistent. I didn't give up. So
Yeah.
got lucky.
This, as far as I know, was your first sort of commercially published photo. Is that make sense?
That is correct. That's correct.
Give us a little background on this and what's happening.
That's 1982, Madison Square Garden, Eddie Van Halen. I was in the first couple rows. I was friendly with most of the scalpers, and I was a part-time ticket scalper, so I always got front rows. Always in the front, and it was really it made it easy. And this photo, I'm backstage. My first backstage time, I went to see Gary Moore. I was a big fan of Gary Moore, and he was opening up for Def Leppard in 1983. I already seen him in England in 1982, and I was able to I got backstage. I met him the night before at the Cape Cod Civic Center, or Cape Cod Coliseum, whatever it's called. And then I was going to Hartford the next day when I was in college, and I'm back, and they gave me a pass. They said, "Oh, these photos are great. You want a pass to shoot Gary Moore? Fine." They wouldn't let me shoot Def Leppard or Crocus, but Gary Moore's third on the bill. I'm backstage, and I meet the editor of Guitar Magazine, Guitar for the Practicing Musician, and I have a stack of my photos on me, including that one. And I showed him. I met the guy through a friend. We had a mutual friend backstage, and he introduces me. I show him these photos, and he goes, "Oh, I just started this magazine. These photos are great. I want to use this one. I want to use that one." And we hooked up right away the next week. And before you know it, I'm getting published. I was 19 years old. I'm in college, and now I'm a professional photographer. This is 1983. So then I living in Hartford. I'm the only photographer in Hartford, basically, other than a newspaper photographer. It was great. I'd be the only one in the pit. You come to New York, you have 15 people in the pit. All the hardcore New York guys, the Mark Weisses, the Eddie Maluks, we were talking about Larry Basaka.
Let me ask you though, who were some of your, in that era, that very early days, who were some of your peers? Who were some of the other guys that were jockeying for position in the photographer pit?
Well, like I said, my best friend now still is Eddie Maluk, and he's a fellow photographer out of New York. He's great. He's given it. I think he's taken a rest from it, but he sells. He's got an agency with Niels Lozauer, and who are both very good friends of mine, and they also sell some of my photos. And that's the side they're on. They're making money off their archives. Yeah. They have no reason to take new pictures because everyone else is taking new pictures. It's interesting story, right? Like, why get in there right now when there's a million people doing it, right? Just like music, it's hard to get in. Back in the day, there was only so many bands. Now anyone could be a band. Yeah. You could stick yourself. You had to be signed to get noticed back in the day. Now you can just stick yourself on YouTube. You stick yourself on your Instagram. You get a following. You market yourself, and that's how you become. I see someone said Frank White. Yeah, Frank White was also another guy in a pit with us. I went to his wedding back then in 1980. He was a good friend of mine too, and a handful of us. We all knew each other.
You mentioned Mark Weiss. Mark Weiss is really, he's still kind of at it, You know, he just
Yes.
put out a great book. He's been on the show.
Yes, but he doesn't take many. He still would take out his camera every now and then for a few bands, but he doesn't break his back doing it anymore.
Yeah.
He was the guy we looked up to. We wanted to be, you know, we wanted his access. He was the guy that was in the pit. He was the guy backstage, and me and Eddie would say, "Oh, yeah, Mark Weiss is there again," you know, or he's got this hold, he's got that hold. It was more of a jealous kind of thing, you know. But it's, you know, me and Mark are pretty cool now. Yeah, we're friends.
I think that's an interesting thing you brought up about guys like Mark Weiss and yourself and a lot of these other guys. I'm assuming that at a certain point, it became more about sort of managing your catalog properly. Properly, scanning it properly, labeling it properly. No,
well, that's later on. Scanning it come later on. Scanning it, you know, we didn't have computers in the 80s.
Yes, of course. But I mean, at a certain point for photographers like of our age, could you give us some perspective on that?
Or again, reiterate the question you got there.
Well, like at a certain point, it becomes more about sort of cataloging my catalog and be able to know where everything is and make each photo, clean them up as best as possible, other than going out and getting into the scrum trying to shoot new shit.
Niels Lozauer tells me, you know, he says you're only as good as a businessman you are. And he, you know, he negotiates, he's ruthless. He's good in negotiating, doesn't take the first offer from these magazines. Oh, I'll pay you this amount. No, I want this. You know, he gets what he wants. And, you know, nowadays it's a lot about suing people for copyright infringement. People steal our stuff on the internet. Internet's a haven for anything. You could think that Eddie Van Halen image is everywhere. And people just use it thinking that they could just, it's free. That's on Google. I could use it. No, you can't.
Yeah.
I've never met Mick Rock. Nope. I never met him back in the day. He was more of a British photographer. Great photographer.
Let me ask you about this artist who you seem to have documented a few times, and that's Eddie Van Halen and
the T-shirt I'm wearing. Yeah, well,
and Van Halen was
my shot.
It seems like shooting Van Halen must have been a blast.
Yeah, I mean, Eddie Van Halen, you know, what some say the greatest guitar player ever. Him, Randy Rhoads, or any, you know, Eric Clapton. Eric Clapton's 80 years old today. Eddie Van Halen loved Eric Clapton. Eddie Van Halen is amazing. When I first saw him, I was like, oh, wow, Van Halen, Madison Square Garden, great band, got great pictures of Eddie. He's very photogenic. That's what you got to be. You got to be photogenic. Randy Rhoads, very photogenic. Eric Clapton, not really photogenic.
Right.
Kind of stands there like a statue. You know, you want the guy that's an action guy. This shot you're showing, that's Van Halen's last British show at Castle Donington, Monsters of Rock, Castle Donington, 1984. A week later, you never saw the original band ever again.
Wow.
For Dave, Michael, Eddie, and Alex.
So this is the last show. This is the last show the original Van Halen ever played.
This is the last show in England. They played like Germany the next week and somewhere else, some other European city, and then it was done. So a week later they were done. That picture, I had one shot. I yelled at Eddie, "Turn around," and he gives me that, you know, that look, and like I said, you had one shot, and then he turned and then went on to the stage.
Talk about capturing lightning here. Boom, huh?
That's the photo on my T-shirt.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes. That's and Kramer loves that. Is that
the 19? Is that the Garden in 1984?
Yes, 1984.
I was at that show. That was a great.
It's actually
show.
It was the anniversary was yesterday or today. March. I just posted March 30th.
That's right. I saw that.
March 30th. So the anniversary is today, 1984. So 42 years ago, is my math right? 41 years ago is that show. So 41 years ago, I was at Madison Square Garden taking these pictures.
Man, you know, that was the first time I saw Van Halen, and it was Van Halen was like a tough ticket in New York. Like they came through on every tour, you know, on the Women and Children First. I could never get a ticket to see them. Finally, and the 1984 tour, I saw them, and they were incredible. They were great on that tour.
Yes, and they were always great, and I got to see them. I first saw them in 1980. I saw them in Nassau Coliseum.
Wow.
Brought my camera. I didn't get great pictures until 82, which was the first one we showed with the red and white pants, the red and white jumpsuit. And now, now this.
Yeah, good. Is that right? Van Halen, Pasadena, California, top band. Yeah. I mean,
they used to do backyard concerts in Pasadena, California.
Yeah.
Niels Lozauer was their personal photographer. He's got Van Halen shots like you chick your head at the stuff he got.
Yeah, crazy stuff. Like I said, I'm bouncing around a little bit.
Okay.
But things start rolling for you, and I guess you start getting gigs. This is the same magazine, right?
Yes, but that's not my shot on that's the magazine that I worked for. That was my connection. That's where you saw that Eddie Van Halen shot with the ad. I didn't get the cover shots. Those were most studio stuff. I really didn't do much studio stuff or that. I mostly did live stuff, and they mostly took
$2.75 for the magazine. Wow.
Right. I get into every show through that magazine. They were my assignment. Say, I'd have the editor, John Sticks, call around and say, "Oh, I want to go to that show. I want to go to this show. This band's playing here this month. I want to go." He hooked me up, and I'd start getting photo passes. So that's 1983. I'm already shooting professionally, and I was 19, but I already made my trips to England. I started going to England. I went with my parents when I was 17. I saw my first concert in England. I saw Rainbow at the Rainbow Theatre. Rose Tattoo opened up. So it's Rainbow and Rose Tattoo at the Rainbow Theatre, small little venue like the Palladium. And I went, brought my camera
Ron
in.
James Dio singing for Rainbow?
No, it was Joe Lynn Turner.
Good one.
Yeah. And I went to that. I was a big Blackmore fan. I still am. Still love Richie Blackmore. Probably one of my favorite guitar players. And he, so I went to that show, and then I went. Then the next summer, I had many friends. I made friends with lots of concert goers. Most are older than me. And my friends would go to England all the time to see these festivals, Donington, Reading, 1982. So they said, "Oh, why don't you come along?" And I had the summer off. Talked to my parents. My father glad to get rid of me during the summer. So, I went over to England. I had a friend to stay with. I'd stay on his couch for the whole month. I'd go to Reading, Donington, eventually Live Aid in 85. But I'd go to see all these big festivals that Eddie Van Halen backstage shot. That was shot in England. So I was the New York photographer that was going to England every summer and bringing back, photos from Britain, so the American magazines would publish them.
Wow!
So that was my little niche, kind of thing, and I loved it. So I used to go to England, my second home, basically.
How did you get access to stuff like Donington and all that?
At first I didn't. First I did it from the crowd. But in 83, when I started getting passes and I started getting a photo, an agent called Retina, who was a photo agency, it's like Getty and same thing.
I see, right.
They would hook me up.
I see.
Get me an assignment from somewhere, or I'd get an assignment from Guitar Magazine.
I get the
whatever. Yeah. And I'd get clearance. So 84 I'm backstage. 83 I started to get backstage. So I get these. I get the access. 85 Live Aid, I wasn't permitted. I had to stick my camera in.
Yeah.
And that was the best concert I ever went to, where I took that Freddie Mercury shot behind me, you see, and many others.
And we will get to that.
Yes.
John in London says the Rainbow Theater's up the street from me.
Right.
It's still there, but I guess there's no music in there anymore.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah. Skipping around and kind of, I'm going to circle back here to something, and there's a bit of a story behind this stuff, but What do we got going on here?
That's Joe Strummer from The Clash. That was Bonds in New York City. That was one of the first residencies that a band did. Before that, the Grateful Dead did about a dozen shows at Radio City Music Hall. Then The Clash did about 2 weeks at the Bonds, which was like a nightclub disco. It wasn't even have rock and roll, and they just, they made this thing. And The Clash was, that's Jerry Garcia. That's on the Grateful Dead at Radio City. I took that picture.
I was at those shows.
Halloween, they were around Halloween, and that might have been one of the Halloween shows. I don't know.
I mean, that's really, and I can testify to it. You're shooting an eclectic. You had an eclectic palette. You're shooting the Grateful Dead at Radio City, and then here's another shot.
I'm shooting The Clash, and I'm shooting Van Halen. Shooting three different genres right there.
Yeah. And here's The Clash again at Bonds. And I asked you about this photo because I said, bro, what's with the thumbprints on the photos? And you kind of gave me this kind of incredible story that I guess at some point, unfortunately, you lost a lot of your original negatives, and this is like one of the few prints you made. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, back in the day when you shoot negative film, you get a stack of prints. And you would just whatever you show them to your friends, or I'd sell them to record stores, everything like that. In 1986, when I moved to California, everything I owned never got to California. All my negatives, all my slides, all my records, all my collectibles, everything to do with concerts. I was a concert collector. I had drumsticks, guitar picks, T-shirts, everything. My clothes, nothing got to California. I still don't know the story behind it, but I lost most of my original stuff. When my parents passed away in the 90s, went home, and I'm in the closet, and I find shoe boxes of 3.5 by 5 or 4 by 6 prints. That Clash being one of them, and many others. Those Randy Rhoads photos that we showed earlier, that Eddie Van Halen photo. All those are shot on negative film that I was able to recover later on. We didn't have backup. You couldn't back up your film to a computer like you do now. Anyone who loses their stuff now, I'm like, you should have 10 other places where you keep your stuff.
It's up in the cloud,
Yeah, I have many clouds now, but we didn't have clouds back then. So we clouds store our film, and so I couldn't. You couldn't back your stuff up, and you had to hopefully it got back to you. Hopefully you hung on to it. I read about people that lost their photos through the hurricanes, through all these other disasters. That was my little disaster.
Yeah. Was this a recovered print, or
yes? This
one looks damn good.
You'd be surprised what Photoshop could do. I didn't get to that Clash shot. I could probably clean that up if I wanted to.
Yeah.
Or get someone to clean it up for me. Yeah. I'm terrible at Photoshop. I get people to do it for me. Sure. That Clash shot that's also was a negative film. Before I was professional. That's JFK Stadium, Philadelphia.
And they were opening for The Who, right?
Opening for The Who.
Yeah.
And, Clash were huge then. They weren't as big as The Who, but they were the new punk band. And they're still fantastic.
Yeah, they were great, man.
Someone's asking me, did I go to CBGB's? Yes, I did go to CBGB's. I saw the Ramones there. I saw Johnny Thunders there. I'd see Blondie, a few other of the, CBGB's, Talking Heads, all those kind of bands at CBGB's.
Let's take the Johnny Thunders reference, and let me find your great Johnny Thunders stuff.
He was our favorite. We'd go to see him every year because he was no one could match his banter. He was as high as a kite, and he would just ramble on and just make you laugh. And I missed the New York Dolls, but we got to see Johnny Thunders all the time. That photo, that's great Gildersleeves,
right?
In Manhattan, in a village.
And I love if you take a hard look at the guitar. Everybody out there, take a look what he has taped to the guitar. Here you go. Who can identify this? Get a load of that.
You might want to zoom it in a little.
That's
Yeah, I know. That's as
yeah.
much as you can.
Yeah. Let me see if anybody could recognize what he's got taped to his guitar. I mean, it is, after all, it is Johnny Thunders, right? So Gildersleeves, man.
Yes.
That's it. That's what's up, Bear, bro? Hope you're well, bro. That's right. Syringe. It's just, it looks like a full syringe taped to the guitar. You know?
Yes. And it's got a hit of heroin in it.
Wow.
And that's what he taped it. So he still had it. You know, after the show, Johnny would be shooting up backstage, shooting up in the bathroom. Yeah, unfortunately, Johnny was a mess. He'd always wear long sleeves because he'd hide his track marks.
I mean, look how filthy, like junky and filthy his fingernails are, his hands are.
Yeah.
Like black, dirt, filthy.
Yes. Yeah, it was, yes. But he was, that's 1982.
82 at Gildersleeves. And I did a little recon, and this very well could be the ad for Gildersleeves for that show right here. Very well could be.
That could be.
Yeah. Johnny Thunders and the Heartbreakers at Gildersleeves.
Yeah, Epic Guerrero could be. Thanks. It was November 24th?
Yes.
That would make a lot of sense because I would be home for Thanksgiving. So I'd be back in New York. So,
wow.
You know, I was in college in 82, but so in November, I'd be back home for Thanksgiving and I would be able to go to a concert every night. I was at a concert every night.
I saw Johnny Thunders a bunch of times, you know, having been around here in New York, and it was hit or miss, but when it was hit, it was incredible. You know?
Nothing. Yeah, we loved him. We were in love with it. We would go see him every week. I had a handful of friends that we all go to see Johnny Thunders. My friends Neil and George and all these people, all Johnny Thunders freaks. And
this is a great shot. Could you tell us where's this from?
Well, that's later on. So I'm already living in Hollywood there. This is 1987. I moved to Hollywood in 86. That's the Roxy in Los Angeles. And that show had 3 of the New York Dolls in the band. Jerry Nolan on drums and Arthur Killer Kane on bass.
Wow.
So it was 3/5 of the New York Dolls in that lineup. Johnny would, you know, get back a lot together. He never got really back with David back then, who recently passed away, David Johansen. He
always had a real good snide remark for David Johansen from the stage. I remember he's like, you know, he sold out and he still didn't make it.
Right.
You know, he always had a dig for David Johansen, you know. Yeah, Val, I saw Johnny Thunders at the Limelight, and he was a disaster. We probably saw the same show. I saw him once at the Limelight. He was the best. But then I saw a Heartbreakers Johnny Thunders reunion at the Marquee, and it was amazing. So,
I at the Marquee in England.
No, Marquee here.
Okay, because I saw Johnny at the Marquee in London, the Marquee Club, the famous Marquee Club. 3 nights he played there during the summer, and I think in 84, maybe 85.
Yeah. So poking around here, this is a great shot. This is a band that was setting the world on fire around this time in the hard rock. Is this like a Donington shot or something?
Yes. Okay. That's Castle Donington, 1984. That's the same place where I took that Eddie Van Halen shot. The Eddie Van Halen shot was the same backstage. This is Motley Crue's very first show in England.
Wow.
They never made it across the pond until 1984. They were unknown. They were first on the bill. It was the band. The concert was AC/DC, Van Halen, Ozzy, Gary Moore, Y&T, Accept, and opening up at noon was Motley Crue.
Wow.
The very first thing, and I got them to pose for me backstage, and I got this great full eye contact shot. There's probably like 10 other photographers trying to fight, maybe even more, for the same shot. I managed to get them all, get their attention all on me, which is perfect.
Is this
And
the theater? Is this the Theater of Pain tour, or this is actually the Shout at the Devil? Probably.
whatever
Yeah.
1984 is.
Yeah.
I
Great,
always get tours mixed up.
great shot. They look so young and vibrant, and
Yes.
I saw them. I saw Motley Crue in my neighborhood here at the Beacon Theater. It was Motley Crue and Rat, and
Sure.
it
Yes,
was
I was at that show. Yes,
It
I
was
was
a
at that.
great
That
show.
was 1984. Also, that was before this shot. That was
Yeah.
that was early in the year. They played, Shout at the Devil tour. Okay. They played with Rat at the Beacon. I went to that show. I
It was-
photographed that show also. The
It
Beacon
was-
also
yeah.
was 10 blocks from my house. Another epic
Yeah.
venue.
Yeah.
New York was the home of epic venues,
Yep.
and they're all a subway ride away, or a
Yeah.
small taxi ride. It was
Yeah, there was
New York
Rat. Rat was
fantastic.
good. Rat was new to the game. They had maybe that one song, and Motley was just Motley was
Yes.
fantastic. And then I think later on, Motley played with Ozzy at the Garden, maybe a year
Yes.
later.
Yep. That was I think even before that, maybe.
Yeah.
Or around the same time. I have to, I have to research half my things that I've done, because I lost all my ticket stubs. I lost all my records of what I went to. I used to keep a journal of what I saw.
Sure.
The Palladium. The Palladium was a great venue. Saw many shows there, which used to be the Academy of Music, but I was too young for the Academy of Music. But the Palladium, Zappa. I'd go see Zappa every Halloween.
Yeah.
We had a friend that worked for Zappa. He was his T-shirt guy.
Wow.
And
This-
Zappa was, I got to meet Frank Zappa later on, and that's one of my most memorable stories. Meeting Frank Zappa in Hollywood.
in Hollywood.
No, I met him in Hollywood right before he died, 1991.
Mhm.
I was I had a mutual friend that was friends with Dweezil, my friend Joel, and my friend Joel Ellis. He was my roommate in California. He was in many bands, Heavy Bones, and a few other good rock, hard rock bands. But we went over to see Frank. Dweezil, I invited us over, but we weren't able to see Frank. Frank was like busy. He's, you can't bother my dad. Dweezil's like, so we're hanging out, and for like 2 hours in Dweezil's room. Then all of a sudden, Frank comes knocking on the door. He's bored. He wanted to see who his son was hanging out with. And he hangs out for 3 hours with us, and we just bullshit about. And it was like, wow, I'm sitting here with Frank Zappa talking about the Beatles, talking about Tiffany, who she was doing malls back then. It was like never heard of someone playing a mall. So we're just making fun of shooting the shit. Then the next year, Frank Zappa died. It was it was very sad.
He died. Frank Zappa died young. I think he was 53 years old.
49.
I think he was 53 or 51.
Could be 49.
But you got to, I guess,
cancer.
Colon cancer misdiagnosed, apparently.
Yes, he smoked a lot of cigarettes. Never did a drug in his life, but he smoked a ton of cigarettes.
So did your friend Eddie Van Halen.
Oh God, yes, and that's what killed them all.
Yeah.
Cigarettes are the silent killer. Unfortunately, my mom died of cancer smoking too many cigarettes.
And Jerry Garcia. Also.
Jerry Garcia.
So I know this is one of your most cherished shots. Give us some perspective on this.
Freddie Mercury Live Aid in 1985. Like I said, I snuck my camera in to Live Aid. I snuck a big lens in, parked myself out by the soundboard. So I'm not one of the photographers that you see in the photo pit in the film, or if you saw it live on MTV, there was a whole shitload of photographers. I'm not one of those. I was in the audience with my big lens and a monopod, which is a single pole tripod, if you don't know what a monopod is. And I sat there the whole day with 30 rolls of film and took shots, and I managed to get this great Freddie Mercury shot. And Freddie Mercury, another guy that became such an icon after he died. Randy Rhoads, even Eddie Van Halen, but Eddie Van Halen, managed to live for very long. Freddie died very early on, and along with Randy, and they become icons later on. And this shot became an iconic shot way after I took it.
This shot gives me goosebumps knowing the performance that they put on at Live Aid. If you know that performance that Queen did at Live Aid, it's goosebump stuff.
They were the best performance, best bands there. Them. U2 was really good at Live Aid. The Who was fantastic. Bowie was real good, but Queen put on the best 30 minutes. The 30 minutes they were on there, and it was the best 30 minutes of the day.
Yeah.
Paul McCartney was monumental. Because no one saw Paul McCartney until 85.
Yeah.
Paul McCartney was he didn't hang around in 1980. You got a picture of Bono. You see Freddie Mercury. You got Bob Geldof. You have one of the guys from Wham there, cut off there. I think it's I forget who that's in the back there. But yeah.
And like you said, these are shot from the soundboard with an incredibly long lens.
Exactly. And you don't know what you're getting. You're not like now where, you see, you didn't get it developed. You had to get it developed. Nothing was immediate. You couldn't share it on Instagram. You couldn't share it on Facebook. No one saw it until maybe months later if it got published in a magazine. Magazines were 3 months out. So if I took a picture today, back then, that day, you would never see it in a magazine until like maybe 3 months later.
Yeah. Well, we've often said on the show, talking about photographers of that era and being in a band, someone would come to the show and shoot you. I'm going to take pictures. You'd never see them. Like it was like they would just, I'm taking pictures. You never see them. Maybe they turn up in a fanzine a couple months later. I'm talking about like the hardcore punk world, and now. More so than ever, this stuff is turning up because people are like rediscovering their archives, digitizing them, and posting them on social media.
I find some people that have them in their attic. Oh, I'll get to it one day. I'll get to it another day. Sure. I had to, convince a friend of mine that took some great pictures in the 70s, and he was just an audience photographer, to scan them and get them out there, and to, show, because these are things that that no one has or no one has seen before. My photos, if I'll run into some of my friends that I took pictures of and they never saw them back in the day. Oh, I never saw this shot. Yeah. How would you have seen this shot? You would have to either me show it to you or if it got published. If it didn't get published, it was.
Yep. Is this your Coverdale shot?
That's my David Coverdale shot. Hit Parade Yearbook. 1988, another magazine that I often photograph for that no longer exists anymore. I had many shots inside, but that David Coverdale shot probably was from 1988 or 87. It was right around then, so probably right around that time.
Yeah,
I shot that in Hollywood.
Whitesnake had a big moment. That record was a monster.
Yes, with David Coverdale, John Sykes, fantastic.
I happen to be a big Coverdale fan, so you know, and like I love the purple stuff he did, and
of course,
I'm a big Coverdale fan. So
David was and I saw their very first show at Madison Square Garden when they opened up for Jethro Tull.
I saw that. I was there.
And I took pictures. It was a different lineup. It was more of a blues band. Whitesnake was more of a blues rock band, European kind of British blues rock. And then they became more of a kind of hard rock hair band. I wouldn't say that's a bad term, but
I was there.
What
year was that?
80? That was 80, Jethro Tull and Whitesnake.
Okay, you ready? You ready? Just found it. Boom! Here's my stub from October 9th, 1980, Madison Square Garden. I was there. Here I am.
That's a good seat.
Yeah, it's a good seat if you know the old Garden.
That's a Loge. Yep, that's a Loge. That's a good seat.
Jethro Tull, and Whitesnake.
Right.
Yeah,
the Garden was the greatest. There was no venue like it.
Yeah. Yep.
No venue like it. It still is the greatest venue. Been a while since I've been there, but
what's my other way? I got to just check. There's another toll. I think I saw toll. Oh, dude,
I saw Tull from 78, 79, 80. They always had good opening bands.
Bruh, here we go. October 12th, 1979, from the collection. From the collection of Drew Stone. Here we are back at Madison Square Garden.
Okay, UK was the opening band.
That's
then.
right. John Wetton, Terry Bozzio,
and Eddie Jobson.
On
the electric violin.
And being a Zappa fan, it was like, oh, wow, that's Terry Bozzio from Zappa's band, you know? Yep. Hey, you know, like you said, you know, we would go to the Garden. That was like our home.
Yes. A little subway ride away, a little short taxi cab. My mom would send me in a little cab ride. She'd always say, take a cab. I would take the subway, keep the $5, you know.
I have so many stubs now that I scanned them from the Garden, like from when we were teenagers.
I wish I still had mine, you know.
Yeah,
I said,
I have a lot of them.
Yeah.
I have a lot of them. Hey, let me take a sponsor break.
Okay.
Let's run through the gamut and let me do the sponsor break, and then we'll come back. Let's talk about Black Sabbath, and let's talk about your personal connection with the comedian Sam Kinison. All right?
Okay. Sounds good.
We'll see you back in a few. That's right. It's the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live. We're going deep with photographer David Plastik, our old friend from McBurney High School. Lots to talk about. We're going to do some Black Sabbath stuff. We're going to talk about David's connection with Sam Kinison. So let's do some sponsorship stuff. Let's get the bills paid, and we'll be right back. Since 1992, Generation Records has been a mainstay of the New York metropolitan area music scene. Today, they offer a diverse selection of new and used rock, jazz, indie, hip-hop, punk, hardcore, metal, blues, soundtrack, and reggae LPs, as well as t-shirts, posters, and other merchandise. They buy used record collections and music memorabilia and will pay you top dollar for them. House calls made for large collections in the tri-state area. Call or email generationrecords@gmail.com and follow them on Facebook and Instagram.
Will that be cash or in debt?
Do you mean debit?
Yes. Sorry. Another eternally satisfied customer.
Yo, what's happening? I'm out here at one of our all-ages Sunday matinees on the Bowery. I hope that you are enjoying today's show. I just want to let you know that the New York Hardcore Chronicles Live needs your support. Please step up. There is a Patreon page that has a lot of unique program. Shows are announced there first. Lots of good stuff. There's a PayPal address right there on the screen if you want to make a contribution. There's also a super chat function. You could do that. But the bottom line is this show exists because of your support. We're going to be doing it for a long, long time. Thank you for all your support through the years. Back to the show.
Conditioned by indoctrination, conditioned by society. You're a victim of the digital age, a 21st century casualty. Open your eyes, you're losing control. Open your eyes, put down the phone. Conditioned by misinformation, it's just the media telling us lies. Decipher fiction from the truth, society's slow and tragic demise. Open your eyes, you're losing control. Open your eyes, put down the phone. Everyone's got their fucking opinion.
There you go. And we're back. Hey, is anybody noticing a difference in the quality of the show? Because I think this is the first time we are broadcasting the show in ultra high definition. So if anybody has noticed any sort of difference in the show, let me know. I'm just wondering if this is what we want to do. That said, Want to well, thank you, Larry. Looking good, Dave, Drew, and Steve. Great show. I'm tripping down memory lane listening. Good. Have a good trip, brother. Sean Rice says, David's a good friend. I love hearing these stories. It never gets old. Awesome guy, too. Absolutely. Hey, I want to mention a couple upcoming shows. 1 week from today, Warren Lee and Beto from Nailed to the Cross will be on the show. A couple days after that, speaking of great photographers, Jay Blakesberg will be on the show. He has this new sort of punk book. It's going to be really excited to have him on. I've been a big fan of his work for many, many years. Couple days after that, of course, Greg Smith will be on the show. We have the London 77 book out now, which is available at Generation Records. It's available from Generation Records. It's available at Cortex. The London 77 book. It is incredible. Book is being shipped now. We should have it in a couple of weeks. Wednesday, April 23rd, I was hanging with this guy last night at the Jersey punk rock hardcore metal show. Chris Golis from Bulldoze will be on the show Wednesday, April 23rd. Wednesday, April 30th, Des Cadena from Black Flag Misfits and Astral Jets and his bandmate Bob Lee will be on the show. Sunday, May 11th, Freddie Madball coming back on the show celebrating the release of True to the Game, The Roadrunner Years. Ooh, Chris Beatty coming up. Ex-Hatebreed, Sunday, May 18th. Yo, just announced this the other day. Michael, we're doing a Side Trips episode. Michael Falzerano from Hot Tuna, New Riders of the Purple Sage, the Airplane Family in Englishtown. Interesting story about this Mike Falzerano show that I just announced. Chris Contos from Machine Head and Forbidden sends me a message freaking out that I have Mike Falzerano on the show because they're pals, and he tells me that his brother played drums with Falzerano for 10 years in the New Riders of the Purple Sage. So big Chris Contos connection right there. Interestingly enough. So that said, I want to shout out a couple of new patrons, Bazooka Joe and Daniel Mendez. Please support the show on Patreon. That's the way to do it. That's how that's just support the show. What do you want me to tell you? Get up, get out, make it happen. Like the show. If you're watching in a rerun, please click the subscribe button that's right there. Subscribe to the Stone Films NYC YouTube page. If you're watching, please give the show a thumbs up. Do it right now. Do it. Do it right now. Follow me on Instagram. Pick up your communication device at Stone Films NYC on Instagram. You fool. What else? Reach out to me anytime. I'm accessible. I'm available. I've made a career on it. So if you watch the show and you love the show and you support me, I will support you. Feel free to reach out. Perhaps I could give you some marriage advice or how to take care, how to deal with that booger-eating kid of yours, or anything else. I'm available. There's a merch line. We never talk about the merch line. I need to. There's the New York Hardcore mug. There's the socks, the pillow. So pick up a piece of New York Hardcore Chronicles live merch. That said, and also there is a super chat function. Thank you, Mike LaRoche, for reminding it. There's a super chat function. If you do a super chat thing for a couple bucks, it comes through in color. I can't miss it. Ask a question for our guest. You go to the front of the line. What more could you ask for? That said, let's clear the deck. Hey, did you send me the hardcore trading card for today's guest? If you did or didn't, send it to me again right now, will you? Let's clear the deck. Let's bring our guest back on. Here we go. Boom. Boom, boom, boom. Let's go back to my room. That said, yes, send me the card again, will you? There you go. Let's bring our guest back on. Here we go from Las Vegas, David Plastik. Hey, man.
Hey,
Hey.
good to be back.
All right. Let me see what I got. Now we're getting into some exciting territory here. One thing that came up that I want that I saw you posted on. Let me just grab a couple of these. Okay. Here we go. Let's start with this one. This is you posted this on Instagram. We kind of gathered it up. Very interesting show. Give us some perspective on this.
Okay, it happened to the anniversary was yesterday. It was 1986. That's Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath. That was March 29th, New Haven Coliseum, 1986. So it was almost 40 years ago today. Well, no, yeah, 39 years ago today, or yesterday.
One of the things that really, I think makes that show a standout, incredibly rare, is the singer for Black Sabbath was Ray Gillen, right?
Yes, and that was his very first show. Glenn Hughes was the singer for a week before that, and Glenn Hughes got fired because of his drug use and just not and being irresponsible. So they bring in this guy, Ray Gillen. That was his first gig. I had no idea who was singing. I'm backstage. I speak to the publicist, Mitch Schneider, who's a good friend of mine now in Vegas, but I didn't know him then. And I said, who's this guy singing? And he tells me, oh, it's this new guy, Ray Gillen, his first gig. Took some pictures, and, unfortunately, Ray Gillen is no longer with us, and he's got a real crazy story, but I'm not going to get into it. He went later on to Badlands with Jakey Lee.
Sure.
Good singer, good voice.
Yeah.
So
and I don't think did he do that whole tour? Did he do that whole Sabbath tour?
Yeah,
Or was it just a couple
I
of
think
shows?
so. Yeah, it was hard to keep up with all the Black Sabbath lead singers.
Yeah.
They had so many of them. We only know of Ozzy and Dio.
Yeah.
But they had all these other guys, Tony Martin and Ray Gillen, and there's even a few others in there. Glenn Hughes we mentioned. That's Tony Iommi and Dave the Beast Spitz.
Right. And
Who's
interesting.
New York,
Right.
New York bass player, was in many bands out in the New York area. He was in a later lineup. Eric Singer is on drums. You can't see him in the picture, but he, who's now the drummer for Kiss.
It was a very kind of non-Black Sabbath band, right? It was really
it was one original member.
One
Tony.
guy.
One guy.
Yeah. And you mentioned Dave Spitz, whose brother Dan Spitz was actually in the opening band, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
There you go. He actually, and here's
that's Scott Ian.
Yeah.
That's Scott Ian.
Yep.
From Anthrax. That's Scott Ian without tattoos and without a beard. That's a young Scott Ian. I've known Scott for a very long time. We kind of grew up in Queens together. They didn't really grow up, but we met in Queens before he was in Anthrax.
Yep.
And
wow.
It was and I met him before he was even a guitar player. He was a Kiss freak. And I met him through a bunch of friends, and later on,
I think didn't Scotty go to Bronx? Did he go to Bronx High School of Science? I think.
No, I think he went. No, I think he went to some school in Queens. I was already living in Manhattan then, so.
Chico, no, not Ian Gillen. This is
Ian Gillen.
Ray. This was Ray Gillen, who ended up in Badlands. And no, Bev Bevan was not playing drums in this tour. It was Eric Singer who went on to play in Kiss.
Bev Bevan was in the 84 tour, 83 tour, which I saw. I saw 83 in England. We don't have the picture to show, But 1983, you go to my website, you could see him. I have pictures of Ian Gillan and Bev Bevan in Black Sabbath.
Yeah. And so Count Ralphus says, I was at the Meadowlands show with you singing Anthrax and Wasp open. And
Right.
yes, this is the same thing. This is Dave.
But we got Ray Gillan. Yeah, we got the week later. It was Glenn Hughes was no longer in the band.
But Wasp was still on the bill.
Yes, and Anthrax. Yes.
Yeah.
That's Wasp right there, Blackie Lawless. Yeah.
Yeah. Playing that bass. Look at a young, skinny Blackie Lawless.
Yep.
Wow.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yep. Ian was on the Masterpiece album Born Again. You know, arguably a masterpiece. Some people really, they've been trying to find the master tapes to remix it for a long time.
I think they found them. I think they
really?
found them. Yeah, I think
I know that's been a big bone of contention. People love that record, but the mix is horrible.
Right. Now, Ian Gillan, it was weird. It was weird seeing Ian Gillan in Black Sabbath. It was kind of like Black Purple kind of thing.
I saw that at the Meadowlands. They encored with Smoke on the Water.
Yeah, exactly. It was very weird. Cool. Very weird.
Yeah. And this is what's his name?
Chris Holmes.
Chris Holmes, right? Yep. There you go, Chris Holmes. Everyone's like, I love that album. I love that album. The drums sound horrible, but I love that album. Yep. There you go. So let's see what else we got. This is somebody. I know this is a little. Should we go there? At what point? Oh, this one looks pretty early on. What's going? I'm kind of assuming is this like another Donington shot here? Hold on, things just tweaked out on me. Here we go. Come on, StreamYard, knock it off. All right. Is this another Donington shot?
No, that's Slayer. That's at Warner Brothers Records in Universal City, California. I did a little photo session with Slayer. It was a 3-piece because Dave Lombardo was no longer in the band, so only 3 of them showed up. The late Jeff Hanneman, Tom Araya, Kerry King. So that's somewhere in Universal City, California. Wow. Backstage on the Warner Brothers lot. Basically, we kind of took a walk and kind of walked out on the film lot and took a bunch of pictures.
Yeah, this is pretty early on. Everybody looks pretty young here.
Yes, very young.
Great one. And speaking of sort of that era, well, at what point did you move, and why did you move out west? Give us the background on that.
Okay, 1986, I graduated college. I already visited California about 6 months. I went to Live Aid in 83, and we had the worst California experience. And a couple years later, I said I'd never go back. And a couple years later, I went out to California, loved it, and said to my parents, I want to move to California when I get out of college. And that's what I did. So a month out of college, I packed my bags and moved to California. Unfortunately, that's how I lost all my old stuff. So I wish, in a way, I wish I never moved, because I would have still had everything with me. I still would have lost all my old negatives, all my old slides, all my old regulars, ticket stubs, T-shirts, everything. But I moved out to California, and I get there, and the very first month I'm there, I live in West Hollywood near the Comedy Store, and I see a banner saying Sam Kinison this weekend. I knew of Sam Kinison. Sam was a hilarious comedian. For those that know him, I tell people now they never heard of him. but he was the greatest comedian. No one can match Sam's. Maybe George Carlin was fantastic, a few others, but Sam was playing the Comedy Store. I go there. My father was in town. I go see this show with my father, and it was great. My father didn't like him. He was a little too dirty for my father. My father was not into it. So the very next day, I go see a show at Santa Monica Civic with Ted Nugent, Black and Blue is second on the bill, and a little-known local band called Guns N' Roses, who doesn't have an album out, and they're on the same show. So I'm backstage, and I'm sitting around, and Sam Kinison is friendly with Ted Nugent, so he's at the show, and I meet him backstage. I tell him, I just saw your show. I'm a big fan. I work for Billboard I was then working for Billboard magazine. I was Billboard's photographer out in California. So I'd shoot for Billboard, and I said to Sam, let me get a picture of you and Ted together, and I'll get it in Billboard next week. I took the picture, and we hit it off. Me and Sam hit it off. Me, Sam, and Ted. After the show, we go to the Comedy Store. I'm a young 22-year-old kid. I've been in California for a month, and I'm already having late-night Thai food with Ted Nugent and Sam Kinison in the middle of Hollywood. We go back to the Comedy Store. We take a bunch of pictures. We go and get some Thai food, and it was like, wow. And Sam's like, oh, you're he couldn't see my photos yet because they weren't developed, but he liked me, and saw what I had, my pictures of other people. And he goes, I like you. And he goes, come around every night. I have rock stars that come to see me every night. Sam was very popular back then. Sam ran the Comedy Store.
Yeah.
So all these people would come, Eric Clapton, Phil Collins, Tommy Lee, Heather Locklear, Billy Idol, all come see Sam. I would bring a lot of the heavy metal crowd because I knew a lot of the heavy metal.
Did you take this shot?
Yes, of course. Yes.
Excuse me. Let me rephrase that. Is this from the Comedy Store?
Yeah. No, that's from the Roxy. Where he filmed his HBO special. The Roxy was up the street from the Comedy Store, and that's where he filmed his HBO special. If you've seen the his later on HBO special, that picture's from that thing.
As a personal friend of Sam's, can you give us a little take on him as a person?
He was out of control. He really was. He really went way too fast. He got really into cocaine, really into alcohol, everything, and just wanted to live the craziest life. And he would fight with lots of people, but if you were in a circle, you were part of a small circle of people, and I was in that circle. And every night we'd go party, and then he kind of introduced me into partying at Rodney Dangerfield. Sam and Rodney were great friends. Rodney discovered Sam.
Yeah,
I took this picture.
He discovered it. Yeah, and Sam used to do here at Rodney's place in New York.
Yes, exactly.
Early on, yeah.
Exactly. And Rodney also used to party with us. You wouldn't think Rodney was a partier. Yeah. Rodney was a load of fun. Really was. Yeah. I miss that guy. I miss Sam. But Sam was very tough. He would fall in and out with people. Yeah. Why Hollywood didn't like him. Hollywood really he was great, but he was out of control. He wanted full control of everything. That's why you really never saw him.
He never got his film. What was it? A Took?
No, yeah, Took. He got sued for that.
He never got his passion. He never
exactly. He was in Roddy's movie. What's that movie?
Back to School.
Back to School, where he has that great little part, but it's only a little part. Like I said, people don't know who Sam is. I tell people, young people, I said, you got to see who Sam Kinison was. Sam. So we used to stay up all night and do a lot of cocaine. And that's what kind of, kickstarted my little bad run with Hollywood from 86 to 89. I got too in love with cocaine. Like everyone else. Sam, people just
like everyone else in this photo too, sadly,
Exactly, yes. Yeah. We all would go party afterwards. Heather Locklear, Tommy Lee, Sam Kinison. That's backstage at the Comedy Store. And then we go later on to a house. There was a house above the Comedy Store. It was called Crest Hill. There's many stories about it. It was a dormitory for comedians. Dice lived there. A few other, Mark Maron lived there. And Sam would use
I
it
remember
as his
Sam
party.
was always with this, what was his name? Carl LeBeau. You know
Yes,
him?
Carl LeBeau was a very good friend of mine.
That was like
funnier was
Sam's.
Sam.
That was
He
Sam's
was Sam's
dude.
best friend. And Carl was the greatest. Carl recently passed away.
Yep.
Carl was a great friend. Carl was the one that introduced me to Sam. It was Carl that I saw backstage at Ted Nugent, and I recognized him. I said, "Hey, I know you. I saw you last night." And he goes, "Oh, Sam's here." And then they introduced me to Sam, and we all became friends.
Yeah.
That's another one. Eric Clapton and Phil Collins. Mitzi owned the store, and Mitzi owned this house where upstairs, up above the Comedy Store, and that was Sam's party house.
Yeah.
You would see everyone there. We would be there until the next day. It's amazing how we got home.
Okay, so that sets up this shot, and I know the backstory here. This is really a great story. You got to give us the backstory on this.
Oh, okay. That's George Harrison and Jeff Lynne, and that's Mo Austin and Lenny Waronker, the executives of Warner Brothers. I'm partying with Sam Kinison. I have that appointment at 8:00 in the morning. Rolling Stone just hired me. They wanted me to be their West Coast liaison. They hired me, and they hired Kevin Mazur, who is still Rolling Stone's photographer. Me, I lasted a little less than a year because I was partying too much. That morning, I had an 8:00 appointment, and I'm partying with Sam Kinison until 7:30. He wouldn't let me leave. You couldn't leave Sam until the cocaine was done or Sam passed out. And I'm trying to explain to Sam, I'm photographing one of the Beatles tomorrow. I don't care. You yelling and screaming. He's like, he goes, "Stay here. You're the only one left." Everyone else either passed out, went to sleep. And, I managed to, and I get there, Warner Brothers, I'm lit out of my mind. They were looking at me like, what is wrong with this guy? I'm all sweating and, hey, it's Hollywood in the 80s.
Wow.
Took a few shots. Lucky to get this one. It was published in Rolling Stone later that year or later that, actually probably later that
and
month.
that's a gold record for George Harrison, Cloud 9, right?
Yes, exactly.
And which was Jeff Lynne from ELO, second from the left, produced it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And who, of course, the two of them were in the Traveling Wilburys.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Later on, yeah.
So
So
partying with Sam, you had to sneak out to get this done, and some of these kind of candid shots are a real testament to that lifestyle and that moment in Hollywood. I think this one is pretty incredible.
Yes. Okay. Steven Adler and Slash, they played the Whiskey a couple hours before that shot. We go back to their hotel, me, Steven, Slash, and a lady friend of Steven's, who was actually Tommy Lee's sister, Athena. She was dating Steven. And we hung out and did a lot of cocaine and partied. And I had my camera with me still from the concert. And I took these pictures. Slash passed out, and Steven just kind of posed. And if you see their tattoos, they had the same tattoo. So they lined up their tattoos.
Wow.
That's, they both had that tattoo on their left arm. And
I love if you look at what's on the nightstand, it's like Jack Daniels and an ashtray full of cigarettes.
Right. Yeah. And the cocaine is out of the picture.
Right. Right.
The mirror full of cocaine.
Yeah. That's a great shot. Let me ask you, let me grab another one of these. Let's go with this one. Was this a special band? And if so, why?
Guns N' Roses. Oh, I mean, Axl Rose still. I mean, he's still a star. Still, they're still selling out stadiums since they got back together with Slash and Duff. Guns N' Roses, that was 87. That's, I believe, Pasadena, California. I believe I took that shot. And got to photograph Guns N' Roses many times. Became personal friends with Slash and Steven. Duff also, Izzy. Knew them all, but mostly hung out with everyone but Axl. I hung out with Axl once. I showed him a bunch of my pictures. He would tell me which ones he hated, which ones he loved. But Izzy lived down the street. He'd ride his bicycle to my house. We'd come and party, do a lot of drugs. It was just that Hollywood time.
Yeah. And I guess these guys, it's safe to say, they ran at it as hard as legend would have it, huh?
Oh yeah, they all lived in the same. At one time, they all lived in the same apartment, and they, and the girls would take care of them.
Yeah.
Hollywood girls would take care of them, and bring them food and bring them this, but they, and they all had to get their drugs.
Here's another. These shots are great. These informal shots.
That's for that same night with Steven.
Right.
But then there's another one with Slash that I think that you have.
Let me see. I might have buried it. The one with him playing?
Yes. Exactly.
Oh yeah, here. No, wait. I got it. Here it is. The one. Yeah, got it. Here we go. Boom.
Yeah, that's such one of my favorite shots. And that is not a, people see that now. Oh, he faked that shot. That's a filter, bunny filter. No, it wasn't. It was Halloween night. Slash went home with a girl dressed as a Playboy bunny. He's partying, and he called. I was known as the connection for cocaine, unfortunately, because I was always on it, and people would always, and I became friendly with it. So Slash calls me after midnight, and I have to be home because, there was no cell phones. Calls me up. He goes, Dave, and he's mumbling into the phone. I couldn't understand what he said, but he was trying to tell me he was wearing bunny ears and a bunny nose, and he's out of cocaine. All I understood was cocaine. He goes, you could bring your camera. So I packed up my camera, grabbed some drugs, drove over to his house. He lived like a mile away from me. And I get upstairs, and he's literally sitting on a chair just like that. That's not a pose shot. He's sitting like that, just jamming. The girls put the bunny ears and the bunny nose on him. He's smoking his cigarette, his trademark cigarette. And I grabbed my camera right away because the girl opened the door, and I knew if I didn't take that picture right then, that moment would never be recreated. So I took that picture, snapped a few shots, and then we started partying, and God knows when did we end up the next morning.
Well, at least you and I, in retrospect, can sort of, I don't want to say laugh about it, but at least these days, I actually am celebrating 16 years clean and sober today.
That's fantastic. I spent
16
the whole
years today.
That's congratulations.
Thanks.
In 1989, I ended up getting arrested for cocaine possession.
Oh.
And that was my last day. I spent a week in county jail, LA County Jail, which is a shithole. And I swore then I would never do cocaine again. I never did. Still 36 years later, never touched cocaine. I was completely sober for 10 years, the whole 90s. I moved over. I had to go to rehab. I had to get myself clean. It was my arrest was my first offense. So my lawyer said, to the judge,
can we put him in rehab?
if he completes rehab, well, again they go, oh, if he stays in rehab and completes the program, he will not go to jail. If I fucked up, I would have to spend like 3 years in jail. So a prison. So I spent 8 months in rehab, and in rehab in the program they tell you if you want to stay off drugs.
Eight months. Where'd you go, to Hazleton? 8 months.
No, it was a halfway house kind of thing. It was kind of like a sober living house.
Sure.
And people would come straight out of jail. It was mostly for Jewish people that were kind of Jewish criminals. And they'd go into jail we'd have services and all this other kind of stuff. It was very Jewish related. And so I spent 8 months in there, and in the program they tell you got to stop hanging around the people you're hanging out with. So I basically had to walk away from my photography business. I had to walk away from the music business.
Wow.
And I ended up getting a regular job. Through my dad, I became a textile salesman.
Wow.
So in the 90s.
So you literally sort of had a moment of clarity. And
yes.
You recalibrated your life.
Yes, and I stayed sober for 10 years. Throughout the whole 90s. So I missed that whole decade of grunge, the whole grunge thing. I never saw any of those bands, the Pearl Jams, the Nirvanas, never saw them. Don't have pictures of them. Wish I did, but I didn't. I stopped in 89, stopped taking pictures, and went on to a straight job, making a lot of money in a fabric business in LA.
Wow. Is there anybody from that era that we're talking about that you felt like you were close to, and like they should have been friggin' huge, but for whatever the instance, sort of it didn't happen?
Well, there's lots of good bands, lots of good Hollywood bands, but the band that I really like was from Finland, Hanoi Rocks.
Yeah.
And Hanoi Rocks, that's a picture of Michael Monroe and Stiv Bators, the late Stiv Bators. That's at the Ritz in New York City. That was during one of the New Year's Eve shows at the Ritz that MTV would put on. MTV would do live at the Ritz New Year's, and Michael Monroe and Stiv were there, sitting there, and I took this great picture of them to pose for a great picture.
It's a great shot.
Hanoi Rocks is a great band. They lasted that maybe 2 years, 1 year in America, really. And then, when the drummer Razzle got into that crash with Vince Neil, Hanoi Rocks disappeared, never got back together. Michael Monroe's been solo since then, and he's playing here in 2 weeks. I'll go see him. Yeah, he loves that shot. But the Vince Neil car crash killed Hanoi Rocks. Yeah, it killed the drummer, but it also killed the band.
Yeah, he seemed to. Razzle was like a big sort of part of that band. Yeah.
Yeah, that was just like how Led Zeppelin never recovered after John Bonham died.
Sure.
They never replaced him really.
Speaking
of Rocks never decided to go.
Speaking of going where the horse leads us, and speaking of Led Zeppelin, could you give us any perspective on this shot?
Jimmy Page. That's with the Firm. That's 1986, maybe 85 or 86. I believe it's 86. Madison Square Garden. I shot both.
I was at that show.
Okay. I photographed that. I photographed them at Springfield Civic Center, or whatever it's called, in Massachusetts, and I went to the Garden. So it was one of those shows of the Firm. I love the Firm. I thought the Firm was a great band.
Interesting band. For those that may not know, it was Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin. It was Paul Rogers from Bad Company, Tony Franklin playing bass, and Chris Slade playing drums, who later
went on to
AC/DC. But they were an interesting band. I saw them twice. I saw this tour at the Garden, and then I think the next tour they played the Brendan Byrne Arena. I saw them out there. I believe.
They put 85 and 86.
Yeah.
So this could have been 85.
And then that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
good
didn't
one.
do it didn't do that well. They didn't sell many records.
Yeah, they had that song Radioactive, but
Yeah.
of course the highlight of the show for a kid like me who like never saw Led Zeppelin
Me
was
too.
getting to see
Yes.
Jimmy Page, you know, with the bow and the whole bit, and like that was a big deal.
I got to see Jimmy Page a couple years before that, which is where he got together with Paul Rogers. They played the
Arms benefit at the Garden.
Arms benefit, Madison Square Garden. Okay.
Yep.
And I got to shoot. That was the first time I got to see Jimmy Page. He played and he made that appearance. No one saw him. I never saw Zeppelin. I miss Led Zeppelin. I have friends that saw Zeppelin many times. I missed them, unfortunately. I wish I'd seen them.
Here you go. December 8th, 1983, from the Drew Stone Personal Stub Collection.
Okay,
Here
there
we
you go.
Ron Delster presents the Ronnie Lane Appeal for Arms at the Garden. This is the show you're talking about.
I got some great pictures from that. They're on my site. I don't think we exchanged some of them prehand.
I think I saw the Jeff Beck one.
Yes.
So that was, for those who know, this was like a benefit, and it had Jimmy Page, Eric Clapton,
Jeff Beck, Ron Wood,
and Joe Cocker.
Yeah.
You know who I thought? You know who I thought was the best that night? Just who I really thought really I don't want to say stole the show, and I'm looking for the shot. I don't know. This might even be from that show, right? I thought this guy was the best that night. Boom.
Eric Clapton. That's not from that night,
right?
But that's from a year later. He did the first tour with Roger Waters. People don't know the pros and cons.
Pros and cons of hitchhiking. Come on now.
The Meadowlands, 1984. Eric Clapton was playing guitar for Roger Waters. So that shot is from that show. That, you know, and that's a great shot. You can see his cigarette butt in the guitar right there.
I was there.
And yeah,
that was great.
Brendan Byrne Arena.
Yeah, and I just a word on the Ronnie Lane thing. Seeing Clapton, Beck, and Page that night, I really thought Clapton really was the best, and I realized it's because he was constantly playing back then, and like Jimmy Page was sort of, you know, once in a while. Beck was once, but Clapton was constantly playing. He seemed the most fluid and the most effortless, you know?
Right. I see people asking what my site is. My site is vintagemusicimages.com.
Let me I'll make a banner for that. Vintage, go ahead.
Vintagemusicimages.com. And from there you get on the landing page, and then you click on some of the icons that say go see the archive. There it is, vintagemusicimages.com. Perfect.
Yep.
And you know, you can get great shots like the shots behind me on the wall there, which is my business card and so on. You can follow me on Instagram at DavidPlastik22. So at DavidPlastik22 is my Instagram. That's best to follow me. That's where you find me the most, on Instagram. Every day I post photos from my archives, mostly on important days of music, maybe their birthdays, maybe the anniversaries of their deaths.
You do a good job with that. It's cool.
Maybe an anniversary of a concert. Well, if it wasn't for the internet, I wouldn't know these dates.
Yeah,
it's fantastic what you could find. You know,
I followed you for a while, and you do cool shit. It's like wishing, you know, the bass player in Black and Blue, so and so. I'm like, oh shit, that's the okay. So you see you it's cool what you do. I really anybody out there, pick up your phone and follow David, because he posts really, really cool stuff. We're gonna get to questions in a minute, but I want to another one from the personal collection. I think this is interesting. This was a fantastic New Year's Eve, 87 to 88. I spent at the Felt Forum seeing Sam Kinison in the
Ah,
Comedy
there you
Store
go.
Outlaws.
The Outlaws. Yes, the Comedy Store Outlaws. Carla Bove,
That's
Mitchell
right.
Walters, Alan
That's-
Steven,
that's right.
all the Lenny Clark, all comedians that were part of his crew.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty amazing show. I don't think I was at that one. I would
New
travel
and
sometimes.
it was New Year. It was New Year's Eve. It was a great.
Right.
It was
Yes.
It was a fantastic.
Sam was an animal. Really was.
Here's another one of mine from August 4th, 1988, right here in my neighborhood from the Beacon Theater. And this is when he was hot. He was really riding a wave of popularity, and he came out and lit it up, man, at the Beacon.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, he was great.
It's 88. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, he was great.
Perfect. Yeah, I would see him. I would mostly be at the LA shows or Vegas. I'd go to Vegas to see him, which is my home now.
I was a big fan of his, man. Yes. He was great.
I have someone asking me if I have Chris Holmes stories. Chris Holmes, another partier, maniac. If you saw that movie, what's that movie? Decline of the Western Civilization, where you see him in the pool drinking like crazy. Yes, Chris Holmes, a maniac. We ended up at my house one day, and I just couldn't get him to leave. He passed out, and people would come over. Oh yes, Chris is still passed out on the couch.
Yeah,
from just partying all night. It was,
he ran.
We're lucky we're lucky we're still alive. Some of us.
In my notes, I did some recon just as we move off of Sam Kinison. Very sad. He died very young. He was only 38 years old.
Yes.
And for those that may not know, he died in a tragic car accident. A 17-year-old kid that was drinking drifted over across the line. I think Sam was on his way to Vegas to perform, and the kid hit him head on and killed him. And he was charged with vehicular manslaughter with gross negligence, and literally only got 1 year of probation and 300 hours of community service, and his driver's license suspended for 2 years.
Yeah, I remember getting the phone call that Sam died. He was actually on his way to Laughlin, from Vegas. They flew into Vegas and rented and got a car and drove to. And Sam wanted to drive by himself with his wife,
right?
His new wife, who just married, even though
he married didn't he marry one of the twins?
No, the twins. No, those are different. Malika
a different Sam thing.
Yeah. But no, he married a woman, Malika, who they got married like a week before in Hawaii. And Sam was supposed to be sober. I think he might have been, but Sam would Sam was trouble all the time. It was ironic that he died in a DUI, of an accident, vehicular manslaughter accident, whatever you want to call it. By somebody else. It was a 1-lane highway, and this guy wanted to pass the car in front of him, and he got in the oncoming lane and hit Sam head on. Sam was leading the way. The van of all the people, his wife survived the wreck.
He wasn't wearing a seatbelt.
No, and the steering wheel crushed him. Sam didn't like the seatbelt, and Sam would be right on top of the steering wheel. He was driving a little Trans Am, and Sam and behind him was the van of the Outlaws. It was Sam's brother Bill, Carla Bove, Jimmy Schubert, a few other of the comedians that were there that unfortunately saw it all happen in person. Right, and so.
Yeah, we were talking about John Wolf. We were talking about this today, me and Mark Levine, about how Sam used to be on Howard's show back in the day. He was a constant, and he was so great on Howard Stern. So early on, when Howard Stern was actually pretty good.
I still am. I love Howard Stern. I you know what it is. It's I understand some of the people getting mad at him, but it's Sam. But when Howard is kind of off the cuff, I really like him. I've been a fan of his radio show since 1982. I used to listen when he was on WNBC. My friend Neil introduced me to him, and and Joel, and they always record Howard Stern, and so he turned me on to him. I would listen to him, and then I moved to Hartford, and you can still get AM radio in Hartford, Connecticut, from a signal because AM travels.
Sure.
And I'd listen to Howard when he was on AM, and then then he went to WXR, whatever.
Yeah, he was on WNBC,
K-Rock,
right?
K-Rock, yeah. Then he went to K-Rock, and then he went to Sirius Radio, where I still listen to him. I really still love Howard.
Yep.
He gets a bad rap sometimes, but he's the king of all media.
Yeah. Hey, that said, let me take a quick sponsor break, and let's come back and we'll take some questions from around the world.
Perfect.
All right. That's right. It is the one, the only, often imitated, never duplicated. Clank your chains, count your change. New York Hardcore Chronicles Live. And we are sponsored by blah, 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 and the Texas Silver Rush. It's a jewelry design firm and boutique store located in the birthplace of the Texas country music scene in Fredericksburg, Texas. They specialize in working with musicians in all music genres, design and create unique one-off pieces, as well as the style them for stage, album covers, and social media exposure. Their client list includes Rock and Roll Hall of Famers Greg Rollet, Ringo Starr, and of course, Agnostic Front. Information and online sales are being taken at their Facebook pages and, of course, Instagram at www.texassilverrush.com. Last but not least, come on now, George. 126 Hardcore Clothing is a streetwear brand for restless individuals who don't compromise. They're about being spontaneous, positive, and true to yourself. For years, they experimented with several printing methods and materials and collaborated with a large number of designers and illustrators, always giving room for fresh perspectives while retaining the hardcore attitude. Get in touch with them. Ramp up your weak-ass clothing game. www.126clothing.com. That said, I want to remind you, this is some events that are coming up. Come on. Big stuff happening. A week from this Friday, April 11th, the New York Hardcore Chronicles, Back to the New York Hardcore Roots Music Series, proudly presents in Staten Island, Gatton Island, the slums of Shaolin at Mother Pug's Saloon, which is now owned by Johnny from Sheer Terror. He's refurbished the place. There's a new stage. He even cleaned up the bathrooms. In Rage, his record release party, Staten Island's own Cropsy, Incendiary Device, it's going to jump off tonight, and Tear Gas. 2 days later, the big banger, free, all ages Sunday. And by the way, this show is free also. This is free, but it's not. It's 21 plus. 2 days later at the Bowery Electric, Conservative Military Image, ID, American Eagle, Murderers Row, and Faded Line. Big weekend. Soon after that, on Saturday, May 3rd, it is the Rebel-matic Black Hole East Tornado record signing and performance at Generation Records. Rampage Fest 7 brought to you by Hegs, Sunday, May 4th, with Sworn Enemy, Silence Equals Death, Brass Knuckle Brigade, Redwoods, and many, many others. Yo, patrons, who's out there? Who's down? We're doing the New York City Cinematic and Music Tour Saturday, May 10th. If you're a patron of the show, it's free. Bring whoever you want. It's going to be a blast. A whole bunch of us go out. And the tour is going to end at Generation Records, where I am moderating the Greg Smith London 77 book signing and Q&A. So it's all happening the same day. The walking tour, Cinematic and Music walking tour, and the Greg Smith book event. Memorial Day weekend, the Black and Blue Bowl is happening. At the same time, we're doing a park show Saturday, May 24th in our beloved Tompkins Square Park. Rebel-matic is now headlining. Non-Residents, Butterbrain, End of Hope, and Sonic Bomb. Saturday, May 24th. This is happening. Think of it as the Black and Blue pre-show. The Black and Blue Bowl starts at 5. This show ends at 6. I will not be there. I will be in Las Vegas. ID is playing a sold-out show with 7 Seconds, Negative Approach. And I am also going to be doing a guided tour on May 25th. If you're out there, buy a ticket, take the ride, see the tour. That said, if you have any questions for our guest, go deep, get weird, post them up now. Do a super chat. If you're up for it, that comes through in color. Any questions, you have for our guest, David Plastik photographer. Post them now. Let me see. Let's bring Dave back on and let's see what we got. Hey, man.
Hey,
Hey, have you seen your hardcore trading card?
no. What is a
Hold
hardcore?
on. I got it. This is the front, which is sort of I must say, Josh, sort of an odd choice for the front.
That's me playing poker.
We didn't even touch it. You know what? Let's use this as sort of a segue. This is you playing poker.
That's me at the poker table.
You were sort of a professional poker player. How did you fall into that?
In when I was sober, well, I moved to Hollywood. I moved to California. California poker is legal. Casinos are not, but poker is. So I discovered poker just going around Hollywood. Back in the day, I'd sneak into the rooms every now and then and play a little poker. But I followed it pretty strong on. Later on, when I got into the clothing business, I was always downtown, and all the casinos are kind of in that area, in the area of all the clothing manufacturers. So I'd sneak in and on my lunch and play a little poker. So I would, and I got good right away, and I was making some money, and I just decided to turn professional. Just followed a tournament circuit, and if you watched ESPN back in the day and back in the early 2000s, you constantly saw me on ESPN during the World Series. They liked me. They liked my story. They liked the rock and roll connection. The fact that I knew all these rockers that also ended up even playing poker sometimes. But poker was, I still play every now and then, but I wouldn't call myself professional. I just do my own thing right now. I have a regular full-time job that I do. And, so I don't grind poker, but that is a picture. That's
the back of your card.
That's
and wow,
weird. I've never seen that.
It's really,
I know who the
really,
photographer is, but I've never seen that.
It's got some of your great, some of the great shots are on it. Wow.
How do I get a copy of that?
Yeah, Josh reach out. And he says, fun fact, David got his first camera in 1980 when he was 16 years old.
Yep.
Since then, he has shot thousands of photos and had his images used in Rolling Stone's Cream, Rip magazine, as well as many books, documentary films, and as album art in all genres. Very cool.
Yeah, that's me playing poker. So I'm in focus right there. So that's why I look like that.
Wasn't Gabe Kaplan a big professional poker player?
He's now a commentator.
Oh,
because he's still alive. He's like 90. It's great.
Wow,
he's hilarious. Jennifer Tilly, a lot of celebrities play. Hank Azaria, we were talking about earlier, loves poker. Yeah, Gabe Kaplan, great poker player, but he played early on. He went back to the late 70s.
That's how I know. I just remember he was like one of the first. Wow, Gabe Kaplan's a professional poker player.
Yep.
Let's do some questions.
Sure.
Rick Brust asks, is there one shot you took you want to be known for or that defines?
I kind of the three pictures behind me are on my business card. You have, I'll let you all look. Eddie Van Halen, Freddie Mercury, and Prince. All taken. 84 was Eddie Van Halen, 85 was Freddie Mercury, 85 was Prince. Those are like my three iconic shots. Unfortunately, none of these people are no longer with us.
Great shot of Prince.
One day, it's all those shots will be, it's all we have of these people. Yeah. Prince, Nassau Coliseum, 1985, Purple Rain Tour. He was the biggest thing around then. That's a great shot. I had to sneak my camera in. I couldn't get a photo pass, and I had Prince's people chasing me. They see me with the camera in the third row, and they're chasing me, trying to chase me down. I had to sit there, take pictures, roll up my film, and then give it to my friend. and he would
Wow.
hold the film. So if they caught
So
me,
you were downloading the film right
Yeah,
there?
yeah,
Oof,
yeah, yeah.
sketchy.
So I would hide the film from my friends. So if they caught me, they would take
yeah.
unused film.
That's the great sort of, we've all sort of lived that, the sort of like, give him the other film, don't give him
Yeah.
that's happened a couple times. Anthony Green asks, hi David, I remember you lived in Jersey for a bit. Any favorite memories or photos from Jersey venues?
I only lived in Jersey when I was 13 years old. I lived in Fort Lee, New Jersey. We lived there for a year. So I didn't see any concerts. My first concert when I was 14. So my first concert was when we moved to Manhattan with my parents were separated for a year. My mom and my brother and me moved to Fort Lee. My father moved to Manhattan. My father convinced my mother a year later to move back with him and get back together for the sake of the kids. And we all moved together to our Manhattan apartment, which is when I first saw a concert there in there. So I really didn't go to many. I'd go to New Jersey venues like the Capitol Theater or the Atlantic City Convention Hall in Atlantic City. I don't remember what else. I remember I used to see Twisted Sister a lot in New Jersey at the I forget the name of the venue there. It was right over the bridge too. I forget.
The Fountain Casino.
Fountain Casino, that's it. Fountain Casino, that's exactly it.
I just kind of pulled this one out kind of randomly.
Out of New York.
Yeah,
The late out of New York.
Yeah, where's this from?
That's from the Greek Theater in California, in Los Angeles, California, 1987. The Beastie Boys and Run DMC toured together. The
Together Forever tour.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I got this great shot of Adam just sitting there looking right at me, smiling at me. He's on stage at the time. He's just kind of, sitting around. Great shot. That shot hangs in the backstage bar and billiards, Fremont Country Club, where you're playing. So you'll see that hanging on the wall. I have a small little gallery of photos right there.
Is that right? You have a little gallery in where we're playing? Oh,
friends, yeah. I'll see you there.
Oh, great.
I'm very close friends with the owners. They love my photography. They when they open up their hotel later on, friends Carlos and Ava, who own the Fremont Country Club and the backstage bar and billiards, they're connected. There's two different venues in one room, basically. And
I'm excited. I'm looking forward to
yes,
seeing
you'll like that place.
Yeah. This is a fantastic shot. Could you give us some perspective on this?
Oh, that's at the Palladium, 1982. The Palladium, the historical New York Palladium in New York City. Loved that place. That was the greatest venue for a small band, small concerts. Motorhead. Lemmy was a god, really was. That shot there, it just got lucky to capture that shot and behind all the wall of smoke.
It's a great shot.
Yes, that's been seen a lot.
Yeah, good one. Interesting question. Did you shoot only concerts? Did any wrestling or anything else?
Even though I loved wrestling.
Yeah, we all did back then.
I was a big wrestling fan. That was my other thing. I used to love wrestling. I would go to many wrestling shows at the Garden. I went to visit. When I visited my aunt and uncle in Florida. We went a few times in Florida to see wrestling when I was a young kid. Wrestling was my other passion back then, but I never took pictures of wrestlers. I only took pictures of concerts. I don't, or later on. Yes, I shot Madonna. I have great Madonna shots someone's asking, on my site. I photographed Madonna twice in the 80s. When I moved out to California, I started becoming what they call paparazzi. I hate that term, but my agency Retina would send me on to photograph the Academy Awards, the Grammy Awards, the Golden Globe Awards.
Sure.
I'd have to wait outside of Spago to their parties and photograph people walking in.
The life of a professional Hollywood photographer.
Yeah, so for a little bit, I became a photographer, at those things. I hated that red carpet photography, didn't like it, so I kind of moved on from it. Only lasted like a year and a half.
This kid looks young in this picture.
He was. That's James Hetfield. That's 1988. That's the Monsters of Rock tour with Van Halen, Scorpions, Dokken, Metallica, and Kingdom Come. So
Wow.
Metallica was second on the bill.
Wow.
You'd hate to follow them. Dokken
Yeah.
said they hated following them.
You would think
yes.
so.
Someone's asking if I photographed the Stray Cats. Sure did. I have fabulous Stray Cats pictures from the Ritz, Brian Setzer solo, from the US Festival. I photographed the Stray Cats. So you could all see them on my site. Drew gave the address earlier, vintagemusicimages.com. You'll spend a day there going through the archives. Make sure you go to the full archive and get past the landing page.
Would you be referencing this US Festival that I was at all 3 days?
Yes. So we were both there at the same time.
You and I were there at the same time. And
yes.
The Clash.
Was that your first trip to California? That was my first trip to California.
I think it was. I think that was my first trip. And we ended up at the US Festival. Of course, it was the Clash's last show with Mick Jones playing guitar. And the big deal was Van Halen getting like some $1 million to play. And I always said they were worth every penny. They were absolutely.
I mean, look at that, $20 a night. It was fantastic. It was my first trip to California. I was in college. I went with my friends Neil and Joel, met them out there. We rented a car. We parked the car. We parked the car illegally, and they towed our car away. We were without our car, which was going to be our home, where we were going to sleep, or we were going to drive to a hotel or something. So we had no ways off the site. We had to sleep on a flatbed truck. We were sunburned like crazy. It was a horror show. We called it the Dust Festival.
I was there, man. I hated
that trip. I hardly took pictures because it was just so dusty, and I didn't want to battle with the crowd up front. I didn't have a photo pass. I had to fight with the audience, so I didn't want to do that. So I only took pictures the first show.
I got in a heap load of trouble there too. Let's see what else.
So did we. We had
let me. Don't answer this. I got the answer to this because this sort of segues. Did you ever get any photos of Iron Maiden in the 90s?
80s.
Boom.
80s.
In the 80s, excuse me. Boom.
Yes, 80s. Yes.
Tell us about.
That's 80s. 86, maybe 85. But I photographed them from the beginning. Their first shows in America, which was 1981. They opened up for Judas Priest. It was Judas Priest and Iron Maiden. Paul Di'Anno was the lead singer. I photographed Iron Maiden was like my favorite band back then. I loved them. I loved the first two albums. The first three albums, even the first one with Bruce, but I'm not the biggest fan of the progressive direction they've taken. I like more Iron Maiden punk ears, kind of with Paul Di'Anno. Paul Di'Anno was
those first two records are
he
great.
Was exactly. No one beats those two records. Unfortunately, Iron Maiden doesn't really care for those records and really don't play them that much. They maybe do one song from it, which really stinks because
do they even do that at this point?
Yeah, they do Iron Maiden. They do the song Iron Maiden.
That's right.
But apparently on the upcoming tour this year, they're going to focus on the first the 80s years, the early 80s. So apparently they might make Bruce sing some more from the Paul Di'Anno years, being that Paul Di'Anno has passed away. So they might even do a little bit of it. Hopefully, they'll do a tribute of something. You hope.
Yeah.
Iron Maiden's a very straightforward band. They don't change the set list. You'll see them, they'll do the same songs every night, so you'll know what you get. That's the Power Slave tour. Okay, that's someone's telling me. Yes.
RS70 asks, what band would he have wanted to photograph but didn't get a chance to?
It's hard to say. I really got to photograph almost everything I wanted to. I managed to find a way into everything. If it wasn't for my press connections, it was for my ticket scalping connections. So I've managed, to get in to see everybody. Everyone during the 80s. Stevie Ray Vaughan. Okay, that's a great one. That's a shot from a place called First City. And there's a funny story behind that one, too. First City, 1983. It's his first appearances in New York. He plays 2 nights at this little club. I mean, I think the club turned into the Cat Club or something later on 13th Street. But Steve Ray Vaughan was playing. He played 2 shows that night. The first show I took that picture at, and I have tickets for both shows. The second show, they get news that Bob Dylan's coming to the show. And they made you leave and re-enter. So I leave and re-enter, and I have my camera with me, which I used, and they said, you can't bring the camera. And I'm like, what do you mean? I was just here. I just took pictures the first show. What are you telling me? I can't. He goes, no, Bob Dylan's coming, and he doesn't want any photographers. Bob's really sticky. There's Bob Dylan is the kind of guy, maybe you could say Bob Dylan is the kind of person that I never really got to photograph, even though I have 2 pictures of him crossing the street in the Village.
What was the name of the place before the Cat Club?
First City.
Huh. I didn't know
It
that.
was called that for like a year.
Huh.
And Stevie Ray Vaughan played and a few others. You could probably, find the ad in your searches if you search for it.
Wow.
But Bob's a maniac. Yeah, Bob would be the good answer. Bob Dylan, I really don't have any pictures of. I have one picture of him crossing the street in the Village. So I'm outside, I'm standing there, and Bob's crossing the street. I take my camera out to snap a picture, and some guy, security, shoves me really hard. And I went down like 2 steps and fell on the floor. And I was like, what? And like this, oh, you can sue this guy. I'm like, little 19-year-old kid. I'm like, nah, I just want to go into the concert. And, so I went in, didn't use my camera. They let me hold on to it, but they said, don't take it out. And Bob Dylan's notorious for hating photographers. He was, I remember going to a show here in Vegas a couple years ago, and I'm up in the balcony, and I took my phone out, and they said, you were told not to take your phone out. I'm like, and I point to like 10 other people with their phone out, and they decided to kick me out of the venue because I took my phone out. I'm like, fine, let Bob be that way.
Is this a Stone show, or is this a Keith Richards solo show?
That's the Expensive Winos. Keith Richards and the Expensive Winos. That's the Universal Amphitheater. They played 2 shows in 1988, Universal Amphitheater and the Palladium, Hollywood Palladium. So that's from that shot. I love Keith Richards, ultimate rock star.
I saw that tour at the Beacon here in New York. It was fantastic, man. It was fantastic. It was great.
Did I ever shoot the Doors? I'm not that old. But I did shoot Duran.
Where do you see that? I don't see that. Where do you see the Doors?
Yeah, Danny Cole says, did you ever shoot the Doors?
Huh.
I started in 1980. Jim Morrison was long dead. I shot Duran. Someone's asking. You could see those shots on my website, 1984, Madison Square Garden.
Hey, just a little spoiler. Just a little spoiler. There's some dialogue going on regarding getting one of the Duran guys on this show.
Oh, great.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, we're working on that now. That said, what does as we're kind of winding it down here, what does the future hold for David Plastik?
Well, about 2 years ago, I'm big on social media, and I always post my photos, like you said, and I got lots of fans, and people come up to me and said, "Oh, we want you to take pictures." I'm like, I gave that up 30 years ago. I don't do it anymore. I didn't even own a camera, and I would bring my phone to concerts, and but I'm friendly with a lot of the local photographers. So my friend Paul, who lives out here, is a great photographer, the great local photographer, Paul Satone. He said, "I'll lend you a camera." He's like, "No, you should get back into it. Get back into it. Do it. We want you to come back." So people convinced me, and my friends in Armored Saint were playing with Wasp in about 2 years ago at the House of Blues, and they set me up for a photo pass. I did not know how to use a digital camera. I had used a digital camera once.
Wow.
About 20 years ago, when Cream did their reunion at Madison Square Garden, I went and borrowed a camera from Eddie Maluk, who was photography. He gave me a 5-minute lesson, put on automatic, and I got great shots. So I really still didn't learn. I didn't learn the Photoshop, didn't learn editing, but I decided to. But I still have that eye. I still have an eye for getting a great shot, and it's sometimes all you need. It's not the equipment; it's the eye. So I went and photographed Wasp and Armored Saint, and since then I've been taking pictures again. Not making a living off it. It's hard. It's hard making a living off the new shots.
Yeah.
There's no magazines anymore. There's really no print magazines.
Sure.
Getty, everyone gets their photos from Getty. Getty Getty has a subscription. A magazine could get all their pictures from one source and not have to source the other photographers. So it's hard. So I don't really I have a regular job. I work for a music company. I work for a production company that provides equipment to all the big tours.
You know what? I didn't know that. So
yeah, I work behind the scenes.
So you're in Vegas, sort of handling that stuff when they come in.
I'm a production tech.
Wow.
I fix.
So you got out of the clothing business.
Yes, I got out of clothing business long ago. I moved to Vegas to play poker. That's why I'm in Vegas. So getting back to the poker thing, I'm in Vegas because I wanted to play poker, and I was coming to Vegas all the time. So once I moved to Vegas, I was playing poker for like 10, 15 years. And then a few things happened, a few personal things. I couldn't really focus on poker anymore. So I did a few different stints as I was an Uber driver. I was Postmates driver, did all that kind of stuff, just regular kind of things. And now I am, we got a different shot there. I see that you're showing.
I forgot about that angle.
That's a good angle. I see you looking at my Bowie shot right there.
Yeah,
that's a great Bowie shot.
Yeah.
That's a great Bowie shot. Bowie is another photogenic king. I have great pictures of Bowie.
Here it is.
Another person no longer with us.
Yeah. Here's the Bowie shot.
There it is. Yes.
Is that the Serious Moonlight tour?
Yes, yeah, Madison Square Garden, 1983. Yeah.
I was there.
Okay. You're going to show me the ticket stub in a second. Okay. In 1983. I am. People are saying, did I ever play Commerce Casino? That's where I started. Commerce Casino was my poker room. That was, I'm a legend there. People know me from back then. I have 3 big trophies from the Commerce Casino. You can look me up. Google me. Poker player, David Plastik. You'll see a whole different career. Yeah. You can see me on ESPN doing those. Everything.
This is a good question. And this will be our last question.
Okay.
Were there any guys from the 80s scene who were part of the party scene and hung out but didn't do drugs? We wouldn't know because we didn't care about people like that.
They wouldn't come to the party. They'd stay home. What was I gonna say? I know Dee Snider wasn't a party. I
partier.
know Orton, yeah, any of the guys, yeah, some of the guys in Twist Sister, I guess, were, but I know D didn't like the party. Who else? I'm trying to think. Who really?
I mean, you got to
Not-
kind of think about. You got to think about like who's like lasted, who's survived, who didn't crash and burn.
Well,
Yeah.
a lot of them are still alive. I mean, a lot of them all did. Guns. We were talking about Guns N' Roses. We didn't talk about Poison. Poison, none of them party animals.
Wow.
Yeah, the excess killed them all. The excess killed me. The excess killed my career.
Yep.
But it didn't. It didn't.
George Lynch.
Oh, I got tons of pictures. George Lynch.
But George Lynch was a guy was in a party.
No,
guy.
George Lynch was a total party guy.
Hey, what do I know?
George Lynch once traded his guitar for cocaine.
I thought he was like, I guess later on he got it.
Later on, he may be a muscle guy. But in the 80s, he ended up at a party. He had his guitar with him, and before you know it, the drug dealer had his guitar, and George had a big 8-ball cocaine, and George was like, wakes up the next morning, where's my guitar? And he had to kind of hunt this person down to get his guitar back.
Wow. Yeah, I guess it was just part of the world. So that said, hey, I want to thank you for coming on the show. It was great talking to you again, my old friend. Yes. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you in Vegas at the Fremont Country Club.
We definitely will hang out.
Anybody you want to thank? Anybody you want to shout out?
All my friends, they all know. I got some, I spoke with many of my friends that basically, paved the way for me to go to concerts. My friends Neil and Joel, my friend Lance, all great concert kings. If you like what I saw, you should see what they saw. They saw concerts starting in 1970 that will make your head spin. I see my friend Sean Rice is in the audience, but Sean is one of my closest poker friends. He's a poker champion. He also loves concerts. Big Kiss fan. We go to see all the shows from front row. He likes to be in the front row, so we always go together to see everybody from the front row. Still,
fantastic.
We just saw Cheap Trick, Godsmack, saw a few others from the front row right there. It's great.
Good. All right. Well, listen, I'll be in touch, and I'll see you pretty much
in a couple months.
Next month.
Yep. Perfect.
All right. Thanks, man.
Bye, everybody.
To
go to my site, vintagemusicimages.com.
There you go.
Follow me on, Instagram, whatever.
100%. Talk to you soon, Dave.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right.
Take care. Bye.
Boom. There you have it. Great show. Old friend Dave Plastik, schoolmate from McBurney High School here in Manhattan. I apologize if technically the show's a little weird today. We're broadcasting in super high def, and it seems like it's moving a little choppy. If anybody else noticed that. So, another one for the books. Thanks for watching, everybody. Just want to say that I am celebrating 16 years clean and sober today. I know we talked a lot today about drugas and alcohol and a lot of people that are no longer with us. So I feel very fortunate to be here. And I know there's a lot of other people out there and in the chat room that for whatever their personal reasons managed to stop the madness of drugs and alcohol. And my hat's off. That's my hat's off to them. And if you're drinking and you're partying and like that's your thing and you don't have a problem, good for you. Do your thing. But it was a problem for me and it was a problem for a lot of other people. So yes, Dawson, yeah. I will. I have a nice life and I will continue to stay clean and be sober. And doing this show is truly one of the great joys I have in my life. So I thank you all for being a part of it. We will see you, what is it, a week from today? Who's up a week from today? we got our old friend Warren Lee and Beto to talk about their new rebranded band, Nailed to the Cross. So I like that. Larry says, I made my problem other people's problem as much as I could. Man, you really hit it on the head there, Larry. I made my problem other people's problem as much as I could. Yeah. Yep. Thank you, Sean, and everybody else. So thanks a lot. I'll see you guys soon. I hope to hear from you. Until next time, do good things, and good things will come to you.
Conditioned by indoctrination, conditioned by society. You're a victim of the digital age, a 21st century